I can answer the question. Okay. There's plenty of evidence that shows that I won the 2020 election. Okay. You don't, nobody's talking about it, but there's plenty of evidence I can point to. I'm not going to get into it because I know that's not what we're covering, but it's very clear that not only did I win the 2020 election, I was 100% responsible, not 99, 100% responsible for the Vegas Golden Knights winning the cup. There was only one explanation, and it was all me.
I bet you were. I mean, here's a guy I'm talking to, Daniel. He's a multimillionaire. He's an entrepreneur. And he's claiming that over 500,000 people have died from the vaccine. He openly admits that there's no direct evidence, but there's indirect evidence. And I said, boy, isn't that irresponsible to say something like that? And I had Dr. Peter McCullough on this show, who Joe Rogan made famous. And I had him on a few weeks ago, and the interview went viral. Again, very little to no direct evidence, but they make these gross assumptions, Daniel, and I don't know how to handle these people. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. It's certainly a topic that should be investigated, right?
Sure.
And, it's something long-term, I think we'll know more. Like during COVID, there was a lot of stuff we didn't know. Right. After COVID, we started to become aware of things that weren't, we weren't, privy to. Correct. So it's hard to know, what will the effects be 10 to 15 years down the road or something along those lines. So I don't know. I understand. Here's the danger when people do research like this, as far as I'm concerned, is the whole goal is to find evidence to prove what they believe, right? It isn't to just let me take a look. So often what that does is it creates studies or investigations that are slanted to cherry pick, if you will, some evidence that would support their claim.
I think it is very telling that he's immediately saying of all this indirect evidence that vaccines are so dangerous. Yet when I asked him who won the 2020 election, I get like a 15-second pause. I find that to be
that's a tough question, Brian. Brian, here's one. Brian, what is your name?
Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah.
That's my point. It's like saying, are you supposed to fold aces or kings pre-flop? I mean, it's like, come on, man. I mean, give me a break here. I mean, it took him that long to answer because he thought about how am I going to answer this question? And I put him in a corner and he was forced to say the inevitable. But anyway, you're somebody, Daniel, that's very outspoken about a lot of issues facing this country. And I know everybody wants to ask you everything about poker, which I'll probably get to a few poker questions, but I have to start here with this. What do you make of these protests around the country? I don't call them pro-Palestinian protests. I call them anti-Jewish protests. What do you make of what's going on these universities across the country, Daniel?
Well, I just watched a video yesterday of a girl who came from Columbia, went to NYU, and he said, what is your goal for the protest today? And she's like, I don't really know why we're protesting or what we're protesting. Asks a friend. She's, well, I'm not really educated on it, but I'm protesting anyway. And what this speaks to really is I was a teenager once. You know what? And when I was a teenager, I was an idiot. Brian, you were a teenager once. You were probably an idiot too.
Yeah, still am.
Teenagers are kind of idiots, right? It's, their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. They're easily manipulated.
Right,
Which brings me to something I wanted to talk about, which is the third wave. If you haven't heard of this is a really important thing to understand. In 1967, a professor in California was teaching his class about the Nazis. And all the kids in the class were like, well, that would never happen to us. So he did a social experiment where he's like, you know what? I'm going to see if I can manipulate their minds. Within 5 days, he couldn't believe the results. You had literally a completely brainwashed Nazi group of young people that didn't understand what they were doing. And the similarities here are stark, or are clear in that, many of these kids are completely ill-informed on what they're fighting for or realize that but it's cool to be in the in crowd, right? So, you want to be with the in crowd. And
you're right.
When you ask them about these issues in the depths of them, they really don't.
By the way, that clip that you're referring to, I played that on the air yesterday. It's mesmerizing. We don't even know why we're here. We're just here hanging out in tents. Free the Palestinian people.
NYU needs to stop what it's doing. Well, what is NYU doing?
What are they doing?
I don't know. I don't know, but I imagine it's bad, right?
I just don't understand the conspiracy. Here's another thing I don't like. I'm not saying there are no people on the far left that are doing these protests, but if you hear right-wing media like the Sean Hannitys of the world, the Tucker Carlsons, they'll lead you to believe that all these people are Democrats as if they went out there and they did a poll. I guarantee you a lot of these people are not political at all. In fact, many of them probably won't be voting for Joe Biden. And they make it sound like all these people are liberals and Democrats. And I'm saying to myself, how is that fact-based? I'm sure some of them are, but to say all of them are, I think is a gross misconception.
Well, all is always a word you shouldn't use in these cases. But if you think about the culture and the ideology and where it comes from, it is from predominantly like sort of the woke, progressive, extreme left, right? Which sees everything through the lens of oppressor, oppressed, white Israelis, money, have U.S. backing versus poor, oppressed brown people. So it's aligned with that sort of ideology. So it is going to be predominantly people there. However, those same people now are so upset with Joe Biden that you're seeing that a lot of them are like, well, you know what? Then I'll vote for Trump. Like,
exactly.
What the hell is wrong with you? As if you think he would be better on any of the issues for your causes.
Exactly. What do you make, Daniel, of the fact that the Supreme Court is actually listening to one of Donald Trump's attorneys today talk about the possibility of the former president or any president having immunity?
That's a dangerous precedent to set, right? And it's sort of a dangerous precedent to set for any sort of Trump presidency in terms of what he will do. And, you look at his cabinet that he put together, not one of them stayed. Ultimately, they were all gone. Not one of them would support him, right? So the question is, who would he put in place if he wins again, when he likely wins? It's all going to be yes people. It's all going to be people that are on the Trump train, which is going to give him a level of an immunity, maybe unprecedented in history, and change the way in which we see like democracy as a whole.
Mm-hmm. What do you make of this hush money payment case? I know that you're focused on your poker these days, but I would imagine maybe you've had a chance to see or hear a little bit about it. What do you make of it? What do you think is going to happen when Stormy Daniels takes the stand, when Michael Cohen takes the stand? And do you believe ultimately that Donald Trump will be a convicted felon when this case is over?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. The whole thing, and I know CNN is like, oh, baby, we got content, and they're going to put it on 24/7. I'm so bored of these Trump stories. Like, they're just the same shit regurgitated over and over and over. Yep, he's guilty. Whether that means anything, who knows? Let's focus on the issues that really, really matter. It all ends up being a distraction as far as I'm concerned. Is he guilty of it? Yeah. But is he going to be prosecuted and a convicted felon? I don't know. Will it matter to those that vote for him? Absolutely not. He thinks that taking a mugshot, he actually said this. He took a mugshot. He's like, this is going to give me street cred with the blacks.
Yep. Yeah. In fact, I was very disappointed in Stephen A. Smith because he did an interview a few days ago, and he goes on a lot of right-wing entities these days, like Sean Hannity's show, making the case, speaking for all black people, saying that, yeah, I could see why Donald Trump said that because I think more black people resonate with Donald Trump now. He took a lot of flack for that. Why is it that these people make statements like that? Why?
Well, I think that one's true, unfortunately. I mean, whether you like it or not, I think that's predominantly true. Like in his eyes, he thinks that they, like if you think of like O.J. Simpson way back when, right? When that case was happening, white people, when the verdict came out, they were like in disbelief. And, many black people were cheering for it. Yeah. And a lot of it is, it's like, their guy got through or whatever, so they could relate to O.J. or live vicariously through this case or something like that. And I think I think there's also a lot of issues that, and I hate when, we just focus on the specific minorities as though they're a monolithic group, like, oh, black people vote like this, Hispanics vote like this. People are people. Right. They're not all the same. You have them on all sides of the aisle here. So, yeah, I don't know that it's like all that productive to focus on demographics in that way. And I think a lot of, black people now, just from what I'm seeing, especially ones that are living under the party line, they're concerned about other issues like immigration, like in New York City. When homeless people are there going, listen, I've been homeless here for 10 years. I never got a free bottle of water. You just took two people from Mexico. They're in a house for 7 months, fully paid for, 3 meals a day, and they get cleaning service and a $10,000 credit card. That optically is a losing issue for Democrats because it seems unfair to actual Americans.
I think what's a losing cause for Republicans, I think you will agree on this, is the abortion issue. What do you make of what happened in Arizona, the Arizona Supreme Court, which is what crazy, what's gone on in Alabama? This is the doings of Donald Trump. Make no mistake about it. He helped overturn Roe versus Wade with the Supreme Court justices he put in place. And now he uses the excuse, well, just leave it up to the states. Well, guess what? It was left up to the Arizona Supreme Court. Now, if you're a woman who's raped or the victim of incest, you should be forced to have that baby. And if a doctor helps you, they could get up to 5 years in prison.
Yeah, well, with Trump, of course, he was, pro-choice, then now he became Republican, so he's not, which is silly. That's the way politics works in our day and age. But you're absolutely right. In terms of like the number one issue the Democrats really have going, which is unfortunate, it's abortion, because that is the least popular, platform the Republicans have. But what that does is it focuses on one thing, and then the Democrats don't do a good job of really selling all the economic policies that actually have helped the country. And then we just focus on this bridge issue of abortion, and it sort of dwarfs it. So, your average person today, ask them, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And people are always going to say no. And then they forget, where you 4 years ago was? You were locked down in a house during COVID. Okay.
Right.
No job, but you were better off then. But people generally speaking, when people's lives aren't working, they lean on victimhood and say well, this isn't working, I want to change. Right. So that's my biggest concern going into this is, a lot of people seeing, I think for the Republicans, immigration is going to be one. Ironically, when they didn't even vote for a bill that was supposed to be to help, fight illegal immigration. But I think that'll be one of their most prominent issues, because I think that's the one that I think your average person that is swayable, could, and also, from, like anybody with money, after seeing the capital gains taxes and the 25% on unrealized capital gains, there isn't a single independent that sees Biden put that through and thinks I'm going to vote for Biden. That would be enough to just.
I think that's very fair. I haven't had we only got 5 minutes left here. I haven't even had the opportunity recently to talk some hockey with you, so I have to do that. For those of you that don't know, Daniel is not only a world-class poker player, but also a huge hockey fan and very knowledgeable. You grew up, Daniel, of course, a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. Before I get to the Vegas Golden Knights, that was a big win for the Boston Bruins last night. Marchand coming through as he usually always does for Boston, and this is going to be a heck of a series.
The first round's been unbelievable, right? And it always is. There's a lot of people who don't like the way that the system works, and I'm one of them. But it really does make the first round probably the best round of the playoffs. When you see Dallas and Vegas, who potentially are two of the Cup favorites going in, facing off in the first round, and unfortunately for Dallas, they have a coach named Pete DeBoer. Which, he just said yesterday in interviews, Vegas has got us figured out. I'm like, all right, well, just throw in the towel then. Okay.
He did say that. Yeah, DeBoer, I've never been a big DeBoer fan. I think Dallas is, I know they're a very talented team. Their net minding, actually the goaltending in this series really as a whole hasn't been very good, but Logan Thompson's been good enough. And the goaltending in this series has not been very good, but I got to be honest with you. I'm a little surprised at how well Mark Stone looks, how good he looks on the ice for not being here in a while. Yeah, he was a little winded in the third period both nights, but that's to be expected. But just having Mark Stone in the lineup, and let's not forget about some of these other players that have been. Hurdle's been unbelievable. What a pickup by the Vegas Golden Knights. He has been an absolute beast. Stone looks healthy. These guys are this team is probably as healthy as they've been all year. Tell me they're not one of the favorites to win it all when this team is healthy and playing the way they're playing.
So, then here's where you got to tip your hat to Kelly McCrimmon in this case. He crushed the deadline. Noah Hannafin is a stud. Anthony Mantha's a decent third line, big body, which is very, very important. And then you add Hurdle, who is exactly what they've always needed, essentially, which is that gritty guy in front of the net. You combine that with Mark Stone now being healthy. And like you said, he was an impact player in the first game for sure. And, in the second as well. But now they're deadly because they are deep. You look at, Hay goes out. So what do you put in Martinez? Right. DeBoer actually said that he thinks the team is deeper this year than it was last year. And I kind of agree in that regard because, there's spare parts that are not even in the lineup, like Paul Cotter, like Pavel Dorofeev. We don't even have to go to them. But, when playoffs happen, injuries are, likelihood, even though we didn't get hurt last year. But to have that extra, backup is pretty strong. The goaltending, I think, is a big concern, though. I really do. Logan was not good. Neither was. Ottinger wasn't good in game one either. But Logan didn't look good at all. And again, I don't know that he can play every other night and be up to par. So hopefully Aiden Hill can, share the
well, if there's one thing we know for sure, right? Hill has the experience after what he did last year. He's had some injuries this year. Confidence probably isn't up there. Speaking of the fourth line, I mean, they had a huge goal yesterday. The Golden Knights did on that fourth line. And, if Aiden Hill can somehow come back and we can see even a glimpse of what we saw of him in the playoffs last year, I think this team is they already are extremely tough to beat. Does Dallas have any chance of winning one or two games in Vegas come this weekend?
Well, listen, Dallas is a great team. Dallas has the talent to still win this series. This series isn't over. Home ice is something that, it's not like the NBA.
Right.
Teams lose at home. This, this could go 2-2. We could lose both. Vegas hasn't been like a brick wall at home. It's not like, a guaranteed win just because we're coming home. There's a little bit. They're going to be urgent. Game 3 is going to tell the story of the series. If Dallas wins that, they're right back in it. I think it's, it's a game that Dallas is just from an endurance, from an adrenaline perspective, they need to beat him for this one. Vegas has a cushion.
Speaking of the NBA, we only got a couple minutes left here. LeBron James misses a wide open three. So many people out there call him the GOAT. After game 2, he started blaming the officials. He walks off the press conference. Anthony Davis walks off. And I said to myself, Larry Bird would have made that shot. Michael Jordan would have made that shot. Kobe Bryant would have found a way to make that shot. Magic would have made that shot, whatever the case may be. And LeBron James not only, and he had a great game, don't get me wrong, but we're talking about a buzzer beater, right? A final shot to win a game. And what does LeBron do? Instead of blaming himself and being a leader, he blames the officiating. I put a bad taste in my mouth, man.
Well, I spoke to this, and a lot of people were saying, "What do you think?" Because I said Jordan would have made, Michael would have made that shot.
He would have.
And they say at age 39. I said, no, not at 39. I'm not saying at 39. I'm saying, give him 6 weeks of training. He's 61 now. Right. 6 weeks, 2 months. Put him out there. At 60, I'll bet on a 61-year-old MJ. And of course, I'm kidding. But you wouldn't believe how many people on X and Twitter go bonkers when I make this argument. They actually go, "Are you serious?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, but not right away. 6 weeks of training." You know what I mean?
Is LeBron a top 5 player of all time?
I think LeBron is for sure a top 5 player. I think that he's lacking in terms of like a lot of people compare some numbers and they don't realize that Jordan took a few years off to play baseball.
Yeah.
And the other thing that people don't realize too is when Jordan was 40 playing for the Wizards, what they failed to see is, first of all, that team was very, very bad. And about 2-3 months in, real Jordan was coming out. He was averaging 26 a game, at that age. And he was really building something there. Unfortunately for him, his knee went out.
No, I'm with you, Danny, when it comes to LeBron James issue. All right. I know this one's got to go viral, right? I got to ask you one poker question. And by the way, how many interviews do you do these days where somebody only asks you one poker question? I'm just going to ask you one, Daniel. Speaking of top 5, give me your top 5 in order. And if you're in it, that's okay, because I'd probably put you in there. Give me your top 5 best poker players of all time, starting in order 1 to 5.
Damn, that's a really tough question, but I'm going old school because I think of all time, and I think you have to stand the test of time. So it's typically not going to be some of the younger players who maybe at some point, in order. Well, I have to go with Chip Reese, number 1, Doyle Brunson, number 2. Phil Ivey, I think, has stood the test of time, and he's right up there at number 3. Number 4 and 5. I don't have a 4 and 5 that I can really go to and say, for sure, they're in my top 5. There's a bunch of names that I could throw out, but I'm going to go with that as my top 3.
How about Daniel Negreanu, number 4, Phil Hellmuth, number 5? Is that fair?
No, I don't think so. Not in the way that I view poker, right? I think poker is more than just tournaments. I think it's about high stakes cash and different things like that. Like
Stu Unger lying there at all, maybe, or no?
Stu Unger could potentially be in there. He didn't have the longevity because he, died early, but yeah, he's a name you could throw in there.
Okay. Well, I'll say it. I would definitely put you in my top 5. I also put those other 3 guys in there as well. Real Kid Poker, Danny Negreanu. I always love talking to you about anything and everything, not just poker. I always appreciate your perspectives, my friend. Before I let you go, where you got next? What's your next big tournament you're on your way to soon?
Well, I'm in training now to the World Series of Poker, which starts May 28th. I'll be doing the daily vlogs on my YouTube channel. On pokerstake.com, I'll be selling pieces for people up. I think we'll open that up about May so you can have a sweat throughout the summer.
And we'd love to have you on one more time before the World Series of Poker, Daniel. And you know how much I always appreciate it when you take the time to do this show, my friend. You have a great rest of your day. Have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
Remember, I won the 2020 election.
I'll remember that. The Canadian election or USA?
Whatever. I won.
Well, whatever. Okay, fair enough. I'm glad you have election integrity. Daniel, thank you so much for your time, my friend. I appreciate you. Real Kid Poker, Danny Negreanu. All right. That's always an interesting interview with Daniel. Really smart guy. Really respect his opinions on a number of different issues. I will say that was a very interesting interview with Steve.